Welcome back, everyone. Well, I first met my guest close to 40 years ago, which is a little hard to believe. And at that time, of course, there was a lot of social injustice, and I think you and I probably met at some rally or something like that when I first moved here to Saratoga. This is Gordon Boyd, who really, for his whole life, at least the life that I've known you, has always been involved in social justice in one form or another. And he's key in a forum that's going to happen here in our city, Saratoga, next Saturday. It's about restorative justice and the restorative justice system. So first, welcome, Gordon. It's great to see you as always.
Always good to see you, Jesse.
And tell us just a little bit about, give us the overview. You know, you hear the words restorative and justice and system, and you kind of understand each word individually, but collectively they mean something.
They do. The restorative justice movement is a grassroots movement with academics and people in schools and the criminal justice system who are looking for ways to more effectively and economically deal with certain types of wrongdoing in our society, whether it happens in the schools or it happens on the street. And in theory and in practice, there are ways of bringing victims and offenders together, resolving their differences, and moving on. And that's basically what the idea is. And instead of having these individuals processed through disciplinary measures, punishment, suspension from school, criminal justice sanctions, jail, and all of the expensive and really ineffective ways that commonly these types of offenses have been dealt with. So the conference on next Saturday at Bethesda Episcopal Church, where I'm involved, is to bring out a lot of information about this for the community. So we've invited the public to come. We've got some terrific speakers lined up, and this is our Bethesda's way of sort of giving some exposure to this this movement in Saratoga Springs.
Now, in addition to being involved with a lot of social issues, yourself, you're also a member of the governing board of Bethesda Episcopal Church here in Saratoga.
Right.
And your role in the church is really helping you organize this event, correct?
It is. Bethesda is in a sort of a transformational mode right now. We are trying to do some things that get us more involved in the community and in constructive ways that are in keeping with our mission. And if we go back to 1832, when Bethesda was founded, why was the name Bethesda selected? Well, there's one of the miracles of Jesus was performed at the healing springs of Bethesda in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, that's right.
So the founders, you know, the pioneers here in Saratoga, so, well, there's healing waters here. What more appropriate name for a church than Bethesda? So to name it after the miracle in Scripture. The healing mission, then, is something that Bethesda is trying to implement now. We know that science and hospitals and all of that have proliferated, but there's still a need for healing in society, within families, within communities, and that's why this forum, we think, is appropriate to our mission, and perhaps some other relationships will come out of this that will continue on into the future.
You know, listening to you talk about this, I'm really thinking of it this way. You know, you think about justice system. It's set up, and it's set up in our country this way, that it's a system that punishes people for doing things. The operative word that you're using is heal. So, you know, does every offense require punishment? Well, probably not. And before we went on air, Gordon and I were talking, and I said, well, how does restorative justice work, even at a grassroots level? And you were saying, you know, it's bringing the parties together, sitting them down. An example, let's use an example. Kid breaks a neighbor's window, throws a baseball or whatever it is, or whatever the reason might be. So instead of that child in court being told you're going to be punished, the judge would turn it over to a restorative justice mediator, and that you'd sit down with the victim, with the person who committed the crime, and some mentors, and get the thing worked out.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
exactly right.
You know, that's healing.
And right here in our community, Skidmore College has been in the forefront of this movement nationally. They have a restorative justice project headed up by Professor David Karp in the sociology department, and they've become one of the main think tanks and practice forums for helping school districts and local probation departments and other entities adopt restorative justice practices. They've had conferences, and David Karp will be speaking at our conference next Saturday at Bethesda. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 to 4:30, and we've got some other dynamic speakers there as well.
You know what I want to do? I want to kind of go through some of the speakers just quickly.
Sure.
And because, you know, David Karp is a sociology professor. I think he's head of the department, right? Up at Skidmore. But Sheila Rule.
Very interesting person.
Yes.
I have not met Sheila yet, but I'm looking forward to it. She is a former journalist with the New York Times who's very interested in criminal justice reform. She's now affiliated with Riverside Church in New York City. And several years ago, through her prison volunteer work and other advocacy work, she met an inmate up at one of the correctional facilities upstate, and they got married, and she's married to a guy who is still serving a life term in the New York State correctional system. So she has a really unique perspective on the criminal justice system.
You could say.
A very unique perspective.
Well, all right, I want to give you the information on this again. Highly encourage everyone. You know, this is our community. This is where we live. You know, if there's a way that our justice system could work more effectively on a number of levels, not only in keeping people who really probably shouldn't be put in jail, out of jail, which is a burden to taxpayers if you want to look at it that way, but also the whole idea that once someone is put into that system, it's very hard for them to break out of that system. So it tends to feed on itself in a negative way. So restorative justice is a way to put the parties together and avoid some of those pitfalls. It's next Saturday, which I think is March 11, right?
12th.
It's the 12th, March 12th. Next Saturday, 1 p.m. to 4:30, right here at Bethesda Church in Saratoga. It's right on Washington Street, right?
Right behind the Gap store.
Yes, right behind, there you go, right behind the Gap store.
Yeah.
You should remember that. And again, highly encourage you as a parent, as a member of the community, as someone that might contribute to fostering this kind of justice. Attend this. A lot of great speakers. I looked at the list, a lot of great speakers. And Gordon, as always, great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And I'll see you soon.
Okay.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.